Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to our June member luncheon. This is the first member luncheon that we've had virtually, so this is quite a bit different for us. We're really excited today to have with us Rebecca Phoenix with the Better Business Bureau. You know, there's a lot going on with COVID, and there's a lot of scams out there. So Rebecca's going to talk about a little bit of that with us. But let me tell you a little bit about Rebecca before she gets started. She's been with the Better Business Bureau since late 2016 as an investigations manager, and she handles the Eastern and Southwest Missouri and Southern Illinois regions. She has a degree in journalism from the University of Oregon. She's worked as a journalist, a spokesperson, and a business leader. Then she moved into the leadership and organizational development field, and she served businesses and nonprofit leaders as a coach, a trainer, a consultant, and a writer. In addition to being a Better Business Bureau investigator, she manages their strategic programs and research. She's the main contact for news media, the editor of their International Investigations Initiative, and she's a member of the St. Louis region's Consumer Fraud Task Force. So with that, welcome Rebecca and talk to us.
Well, thanks, Debbie. It's great to be here and great to share what's going on in our area with you folks. You know, you're both business leaders and consumers. So we're going to talk a little bit about both of those things and what we know right now about these. So first of all, just a little bit about Better Business Bureau, if you're not familiar with us. Our purpose is really to advance marketplace trust. And I like to say that to do that, we're the voice of the consumer and we help businesses to be better. So that encompasses a lot. But one of the things as an investigator that I get involved with are the businesses that are not so good. So in order to get on my radar, a business has to have earned an F rating, which, you know, they have to have done some things in order to earn that rating. And scams. So that's what we're going to talk a lot about here. There's a lot of other things that Better Business Bureau does. Here's a list of some of the free services. We do keep business profiles for the public on every business that we're aware of. And by the way, if you want to go ahead and check out your business profile, if there's some information you want to have updated, we're happy to do that. We collect the reviews from consumers who just want to share their experience with a business, but we also handle dispute resolution. So that would be in the form of a complaint that was filed about a business where a consumer had tried to resolve things directly with the business, but weren't able to come to a solution that was acceptable to them. So we get involved in facilitating the conversation back and forth. We also keep track of charities, and we have a rating system for charities. There's standards, and so consumers can find out about charities if they meet those standards. We communicate with consumers through an e-newsletter, as well as we have a newsletter for our accredited businesses, which to be an accredited business, you essentially sort of become a member of Better Business Bureau to support the work that we do. That's how we're supported. We're not a government agency. It's our members that support us. And we have a very robust investigations department here at this Better Business Bureau. I was impressed when I first joined because it's one of the top 5 in the country. Received lots of awards. It's been a long tradition, so I was really pleased to join an organization like that puts such an emphasis on investigating and getting information out to the public. We also have do research into marketplace transactions and just kind of what's going on, particularly in our St. Louis region, and surveys. So those 3 things I am really involved with pretty deeply, as well as the last one, scams targeting businesses and consumers in our area. So those are some of the services that we provide. Now, business challenges. You know, you've probably experienced a lot of these things, and so it's not necessarily news to you, but troubles with cash flow, customer demand, uh, you know, dealing with employee issues and health and safety. These are all very significant sources of challenges that we're currently facing, and there's you know, who knows what the future holds. This is new territory for all of us. So it really demands of us to be thinking in a whole new way. The things that have worked in the past are not the things that are going to necessarily take us forward. And a lot of businesses have pivoted. They are looking at different ways to do things. And in a lot of ways, this may force some improvements in businesses and the way that we operate. But the thing that we also know is that there are things going on with consumers from the consumer end that are very challenging. And these are the particular businesses or industries, I should say, that are really standing out in terms of complaints through Better Business Bureau. So travel agencies, you know, a lot of people are complaining that they're not getting refunds. And then really a lot of the other things are related to that. Airline industry, vacation rentals, and then associated ticket sales. All of those things, people are really complaining about not getting refunds. But on the business side of it, it's understandable because there's some cash flow issues, as we just talked about before. Online retailing is also an area with a lot of complaints, and the complaints that are represented here are of legitimate businesses. So these are where complaint has been formed because people didn't usually get a refund or get the goods that they ordered. But more people are also turning to retail, online retail, because of the whole COVID situation. So it's not surprising that we see an uptick in those kinds of complaints. One of the things that Better Business Bureau has done is suspended sometimes essentially dinging businesses because of some of these issues, because it's just it's a whole different playing field. And a business gets a rating based on an algorithm. So there's not somebody back behind the curtain trying to figure out what that rating should be. But we've kind of suspended some of that because businesses are just trying to survive now in many cases. And so the complaints that we've been seeing in March, about 3.8% of those were COVID related. In May, it jumped to 12.4% of the complaints. And over the 3-month period, we've seen an increase of 280% in those kinds of complaints related to COVID-19. Now, so those are legitimate businesses. Now we shift to scams, and the difference between a legitimate business, maybe that has some bad practices, you know, which you can deal with that. I can deal with that. As a business coach, I can give somebody a chance on that. The tricky thing is when we're dealing with scams, because the purpose of a scam is to cheat you out of your money and not deliver on the product or service. And this is a field day right now for scammers, because scammers prey on fear and chaos. And we have lots of that going on right now. And it breaks my heart hearing from people who say, you know, I just wasn't thinking clearly when I decided to do X. Or I thought finally I got a break because I've been out of work, I got a family member who's sick, blah, 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 blah. You know, and then they make a decision that they cannot even believe that they made. So we have seen an uptick in just about every kind of scam category, but we do find that things involving websites there's been a lot more of that. And interestingly, there's been a decrease in phone-related scams. And a lot of that we think has to do with the crackdown on robocalls. It's been very effective. But about 9% of the scams, and I think that number is probably even a little old right now because that was back in March that we did this survey, were COVID related, and we've seen nothing but an increase in that. People lose on an average about $80, which a lot of that again is due to the whole online presence. Interestingly, people often think that it's seniors who fall victim to these scams. And there's a lot of truth to that. They are the targets for a lot of the scams. But it's often younger people who fall victim because they haven't been exposed to these before. But older people lose more money. So that has continued to be the case for the most part through this. Okay, so fraud and scams, here's the way that they are effective by this. And by the way, I always tell consumers who contact us, don't be embarrassed that you fell for the scam, because these are professionals. These people spend all of their time perfecting the way that they get to people. And they are using technology more and more. So it's not just the person who, has poor English and a shoddy website that they threw together. Very sophisticated websites and very sophisticated approaches. And they know how to work people psychologically. So we've seen about half of them pretend to be somebody that we trusted. So it could be a friend, it could be a bank, your employer, your boss. It can be any number of people that are in your lives, and they figure out in many ways to impersonate that person. They create a sense of urgency. That's one of the ways that they are able to get you to make a decision you might not otherwise create. And they use intimidation and fear. I got a pretty nasty, I see a lot of these emails, but I got a pretty nasty one recently saying that I had been the target of, they said, we'll stop short of murder, but saying that they were contracted to pour acid in my face. And I was like, I'm aware of less violent ways to go about this if you're just trying to trick me out of my money. So those kind of things, when they reach seniors or people who, aren't necessarily aware of this kind of thing, can be extremely devastating for them. And we often have to refer them to for help, psychological help, because it's traumatizing. There is, about 1 in 5 will involve some sort of intimidation and fear. They often fly under the radar, slipping through our normal business processes. And so, and I'll talk about these, as we call them, BEC, well, I'll get to that. They come really close to impersonating somebody else through emails and some other tricks that they have in assuming somebody's identity. And spoiler alert, here's the answer to a lot of these. Pick up the phone and call the person before you ever share any money, before you do anything somebody asks you to do that you can't see face to face. And that becomes even more important as we're working remotely from home. So we can stop right there, practically. That is going to be the answer to a lot of these. They do try to entice you with, good deals. And again, the old adage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And then there's a few other assorted things that go on. All right, now we're having a little mouse issue there. Okay, good. Okay, so imposter scams. As I mentioned, that's one of the #1 things. And what we're seeing a lot of for businesses is our emails, calls, or texts that pretend to be from the Small Business Administration. And they're offering grants to small businesses that have been affected by the pandemic. And the application they use looks simple. It looks very, authentic. But here's the thing, is they're requesting banking and personal information and a fee. So the thing to know is that they're not going to ask you for a fee, because then it's not really free. And it should end in a .gov kind of email address. And again, you can't be too careful right now. So before you get involved in anything, do some research. That again, spoiler alert, the research stops people. It also psychologically stops you from making a decision that is emotional and gets you down into the pathway of logical thinking when you start doing research. We also see a lot of medical equipment scams or PPE, personal protective equipment. And typically, again, red flag, they want you to wire money to foreign sellers. If anybody ever asks you to wire money, that is a huge red flag for a scam. Because once that money is handed over, you will never see it again. Most likely, there's not a good way to trace it. We are also seeing them, you'd think, you know, why would I ever do this? We're seeing them ask for gift cards. Now, they don't overtly ask for the gift cards. They say, well, give me your credit card number. I'm going to run that through. And then they say, you know, we have had so many problems with our credit card system here. Here's something that always works for us. If you could just run down to Walmart and get some gift cards and then tell us what the number is on the back, scratch that off and give that to us, and that'll handle it. No, that's another big red flag. So if the seller does claim to have a business relationship with your organization, verify that, have a third party pick up items in order to verify that they are as advertised. Go through a known channel, which is sometimes hard because, you know, often things like on Amazon, they're out of stock. And then be very wary of last minute changes or ordering things overseas, because actually legitimately they could run into problems there. But more often than not, scammers will use that kind of an excuse as well to sort of put you off for a while. And the more distance as far as time that they can put between you and them, the less likely that they are to be caught too in what they're doing. And they will tend to pop up a website. So if you see that there's a website that has been created in the last couple of months, that's a red flag. It doesn't mean that it's not legitimate, because there are new businesses forming, but we tend to see that in general as a red flag, at least to look further. And you can simply take the URL for that particular website or business, and for one, you can just Google, how do I tell if a website is new? I just like to, Google's your friend, you know, just put any question in there and it will take you to whatever is current. But there are a couple of different software program or websites that will help you. Whois, WHOIS, whois.com. You can put the URL in there. That's one of our favorites because it's free and you can get information there, but other ways as well. Okay, let's see. All right, fake invoices. This is one that affects a lot of businesses right now. You will get an invoice to pay for a product that you haven't ordered, that doesn't exist. And this happens a lot in smaller businesses where, you know, you may have, looks like there's a few words cut off there, but you may have one person paying invoices, you know, small accounting department, or it happens in large organizations too. The key there is that you should have a verification process for paying all invoices. And the products that we see that are often on the fake invoices are office supplies, web services, directory listings, or past due taxes. They'll try to get you in that way. So just train your staff about what to do and create those processes that are involved in matching payments to expenses in some way. CEO email fraud. So this is particularly, it's not always the CEO, but often it is the leader in the organization. And this is the way it works, is that so you get an email, usually could be a text from the person, the CEO, saying, you know, I'm out of town, I need you to wire me X amount of money, or pay this invoice, which of course is fake, or I need you to send a PDF of the W-2 information for this employee to me. And a lot of times people just don't question it. And so they go ahead and send that information. That's why the CEO is often a target. If they can get the email and sometimes just impersonate it by a one letter, so they create a new email, but it's off by a letter, then they will do that. And this can often result in big losses. And we've had some companies report to us, $50,000 have been lost this way because of people just assume that it was legit. So again, putting processes into place for these kinds of payments to double check, the identity, and often just as something as simple as a secret password for these kinds of requests that might come from these senior members, because there are groups out there actively targeting senior leaders in all organizations. So better to be prepared. So tech support scams. These are very familiar probably to people, but there's a variety of them, and I'll show you just some different ways that they pop up here. So it can be at work or at home, and you get a pop-up message that can say a variety of things, like we've detected a virus on your computer, or it may say, stop before you can do anything else. You need to call this number. They may claim to be from Microsoft. And the problem with it is if you click on anything, it could install virus or malware or disable your computer. So it is something to not just say, oh, that's just a scammer and move on. You want to be very careful about what you do. They will usually, though, in some way then offer to repair your computer for a small fee. The thing you do not want to do is give them access to your computer and do anything that they ask you to do that, because they can then take your computer hostage for money or for personal information or infect your whole system. And if you've probably heard about that in the news with some different businesses, or they also tend to target organizations. City Hall and different places, cities have been targeted. Here's some more examples of what it looks like. And so this is one where they're impersonating Microsoft, call Microsoft. Suspicious activity found, and you can see they look pretty legit. Now, I will not encourage you to do this, but if you would happen to call these numbers, and again, trying to be very politically correct here, but it's usually you will get a person with a foreign sounding accent. And interestingly, the thing that we've found is that many times these people cannot hang up on you. The way that they are trained is that they have to force you to hang up. And it's kind of funny because they'll start insulting you and doing anything to get you to hang up on them if it goes on long enough. So that's a really clear sign that it's a scam. But you really don't want to play with these because they are pretty, can be pretty bad. And the best thing to do is just to be the safest, take your computer to a physical computer place, just to make sure that you don't have an infection in there. There's not a virus in there, and it's just nothing to play around with. So let's see, yeah. So hang up, don't give them control, don't click on any links, reboot. Oh yeah, I'm glad I put that on there. Reboot your computer. Probably the best thing to do is turn your computer off and turn it back on. And if it goes away, you knew it was some kind of a fake thing. Still wouldn't hurt to take it in to a trusted technician to be checked. But do change your password, and if you suspect that there's any kind of way that they could have gotten information, contact your bank or financial institution right away. All right, so some more things with coronavirus.
Now, we mentioned earlier a lot of online things contribute to those numbers. We're just seeing a lot of phony kinds of things out there for cures and products. So face masks, sometimes too good to be true prices or price gouging, but you never get it one way or the other. Miracle cures. Thing to know about that is that there is no vaccine right now, and that you'll probably hear from our healthcare providers, or it'll certainly be in the news when there is something. The problem is that people hear bits and pieces and they think, oh yeah, I sort of heard that they're looking into this new solution for coronavirus. Well, maybe they're starting a test, but it's going to take several months for that to go through to completion. So you want to be really careful that you're not acting on little bits of information, which we could then interpret to be, fake news. It's just that we just didn't get the news right in our head in the first place. So check things out. Again, do that research and make sure that it's correct. I received an email from a company that I had done business with before for, I think it was a lawn care business, and they were kind of insinuating that there might be an association with mosquitoes and coronavirus, which again, no. And so that was some false advertising, which we then took them to account, held them to account, and they took that down. Government economic impact checks. So stimulus checks coming through the mail. Right now the problem with a lot of that is that they're switched over from a check or direct deposit to a card, and a lot of people were throwing those away. So watch out for that. And also, a thing to know is that scammers are trying to associate government grants tied to stimulus. So they may say that you've been pre-approved for this additional money, and we need to route some of your money from your check into this, or they come up with all different ways. But the thing to know is that there are no government grants that are tied to checks. They're also impersonating government folks through Medicare, Medicaid, or other government agencies, and offering free COVID-19 tests, saying that you have been a victim of COVID-19, or been in contact, I should say, with somebody. Again, those are usually phishing kinds of things. They'll claim to be from the CDC or a charity asking for money, and they may also offer your business testing kits and things like that. And that's just not the way that this works. So again, if you suspect it, you can always call Better Business Bureau, and we can tell you what we know. You can also search online. Again, Google is your friend, and just Google, put the word scam and whatever you think it is, and you can often hear from other people from other sites as well, if that it's been some kind of a scam that other people have encountered. But do not text stop or no or unsubscribe from an email, because that is one of their ploys to find out if your email or phone number is real. And that you think, well, so I don't care if they really know that. Well, you want to care about that, because these folks will when they're fishing for information like this, they then sell that information, and it kind of goes into to a black market database, and you have varying levels of value. So just knowing that it's a legit number or a legit email address has a certain value, and then bits and pieces of information start coming in from different sources, and pretty soon they have a whole profile on you. Because people often wonder, like, how did they get all this information? They don't have to get it just from one source. It starts to become more and more valuable. It's also one of the reasons why people who have responded to one of these phone calls or emails start getting more of them, because they now have verified that they're legit and you start getting more of them. So you just became a more valuable target to them. Even if you think you've never fallen victim, full victim and lost money, most of us have been victims of phishing in some way. Employment scams, we've seen a big bump in these lately because people have been out of work. And so scammers know that, and they are targeting people through a lot of the major websites for posting resumes, or any number of other ways. You know, still the texts, the emails come through. And the typical jobs are secret shoppers or data entry, envelope stuffing. We found a scam operation within our region doing that recently. And day trading stocks or taking online surveys. And here's the way that it will work, is in many cases, they have you do the work for 30 days. So you think you're getting paid like a pretty decent paycheck for doing this work from home. And then after the 30 days, suddenly everything goes silent. And that's because it's a scam operation. They may be sending you equipment. So it could be iPhones, could be any number of things, even coins, and asking you to reship those things. We hear a lot about those. And what that is money laundering. They've taken credit cards, stolen credit cards, bought this stuff, they're sending it on elsewhere, and you're in the middle of that. And that's actually illegal. So people need to be very cautious about these work at home scams, which is not to be confused with working from home from a business that you already work for. So it pays to do some research into these, and for sure, if it's a company that is trying to charge you for working for them, that's probably a scam. Again, one of the ways that they benefit from this is just simply to get your personal information. When you think about it, when you're filling out an application, a job application, you give a lot of really personal information in there. So that you need to be very, very cautious about that. So the best thing to do is to apply through a website, a legit website, not through always the route when somebody contacts you. But again, check out that website because they are getting really good at creating fake websites. Online pet scams. This is one that tugs at a lot of people's hearts. Again, with COVID, particularly when we were kind of at the peak time and people were really hunkered down with online pet scams, what happens is that the scammers get a picture of a really cute little puppy. They usually don't work too hard at that. They find it elsewhere on the internet, and then they pretend to be selling it. And a lot of people were going online and falling victim to this. We have calculated that about 80% of online ads are fake. So you have a really good chance of coming across one if you're going online to look for a pet. So the way to avoid that is don't buy a pet without seeing it. You can do a reverse image search of the pet. And so to do that, again, just Google, how do I do a reverse image search? And you can find several ways to do that. But if you see that there has been, the picture's been used on other websites, then it's just a stolen picture and that puppy doesn't exist. There are particular breeds that tend to be targeted. But the best way to go through to get a pet at this point in time is to either go through a reputable breeder or to go to a pet shelter. But one way or the other, make sure you see the pet in person. It's really the only way to be sure. And again, most victims lose upwards of, we say $100 to $1,000. It's usually on the higher end of the range. And the majority of the victims are in their 20s and 30s. Mostly we think because they're used to shopping online, they're not used to these scammers being so sophisticated. Debt collection scams. This again is kind of an imposter scam as well. But debt collectors, a lot of people are falling behind right now. And so that's what the scammers are preying upon. They may not know anything. They may make some things up. But the thing to know is that in order to collect debt, they have to have some kind of a notice validating the claim. And if they give you a hard time about that, just hang up on them. They are not supposed to harass you. There are certain limitations on who they can and cannot contact. So just hang up, and a legit claim they will know that, and they'll go through the proper procedures. Fake charities, again, they're popping up all over the place. And we like to say, if you're not comfortable just dropping a handful of cash into a jar at the counter at the grocery store, where you don't really care if you ever see your money again or get a tax credit, then you might consider doing this. But these scammers are collecting money by impersonating the names of legitimate charities. They come up with a name that's really close to something that you may have heard of. So you've got to investigate it. You can request a copy of their IRS 990 form. You can check out the charity with BBB. If they're using pressure, trying to create that sense of urgency, that's another red flag. So, I just have a personal policy of just saying, I don't do business over the phone. I don't give money over the phone. You're welcome to send me information. And I don't give them my address or anything. I'll say, I'll look you up. And if it looks like a charity, we'll consider that we want to participate in. We'll consider that in our overall giving strategies. And they don't like that, but I don't deal with a whole lot of charity scams. So you've heard me talk about a lot of different things, and like these, how do I remember all this, Rebecca? If you're involved in business, there's a few things that you can do. You can dodge those scams by making sure that you stay informed and that you train your employees, because this stuff is going on behind the scenes all the time. And education is one of the best things to keep people from falling for these. Once you sort of know about them and you sort of see the pattern, you can kind of easily recognize them. Just go to your spam folder and you'll be coming across some for sure just by looking through there. Verify invoices and payments. That should just be part of your regular system as a business. Be tech savvy, and if you're not, be sure and consult with other people before you try to do something. There's no shame in that. And just always know who you're dealing with. That's why we say pick up the phone, verify, make sure that you do things in person. That's another way to do it. But if you can't do it in person, the phone still is a really good way to go about doing it. So that's kind of the seamy underbelly that's going on out there. But the plus side is that, we've got some great consumers. There are people who are just hankering to get back into the marketplace or to figure out what to do. And so here's some information about the new normal, the new consumer. And some of this actually is not new. Those things that you see there, like embodying integrity, be responsive, tell the truth, advertise honestly, be transparent, honor promises, build trust, safeguard privacy. Those are all things that consumers expect from businesses and always have. And have been the standards by which Better Business Bureau tries to help businesses to be better. But in a survey that we did a few weeks ago, we found that business practices that consumers favored during the pandemic were hygiene, protection, and social distancing. So, there's a lot of controversy on should I not wear masks? Should I require people to wear masks in my business, or what do we do with that? We're seeing a lot of evidence to say that people are looking for that to be the case, and that they are not going to frequent businesses where they see a lot of consumers, their fellow consumers, opting not to wear a mask. So we're going to be doing some more research into that, because we think that's important for businesses to know about. What's that consumer sentiment? Now, there are a lot of people who feel like it is not necessary, and a lot of times that depends on what part of the region that they're in. They may be right. There may be very low cases. So it's hard to make a blanketed statement, but we know that it's important to a lot of consumers to know that not only is the business following that, but the business or the organization is requiring others to honor their neighbors by wearing PPE and doing all that stuff, social distancing. They want to know that the availability and the speed of the product or the service is going to be there as well. And we recognize that there's a lot of times there's been slowdowns in that because of sourcing and all of those different things that contribute to that. But that's what consumers are looking at. And then, does the business handle refunds or cancellations well? And unfortunately, that becomes more of an issue after they've had a problem. But it's a good way. The thing to know as a business is get that information out there. Tell people how you're handling refunds or cancellations, or if you're going to be flexible in things. Consumers are looking for that. In the end, we just need to treat each other with compassion, both consumers and businesses, because when the dust settles, we're going to remember how we were treated, and it will influence how we interact and do business with each other moving forward. And that has been a key message that Better Business Bureau has tried to put forth to both consumers and to businesses. So some additional resources for you. You can go to bbb.org/small business, and we've got all kinds of things out there that are related to COVID-19, and you can take a look at that. We also have the scam tracker tool. So that is at, you can just put BBB scam tracker in your old friend Google, and it'll bring you up to this website. It's also bbb.org/scam tracker. What this is the tool that we collect information online from consumers about scams that they've encountered, and it gives us, if this were live, I could zoom out to the United States. You can see scams going on in the whole United States, and then if you just keep clicking plus, it'll get closer and closer until you get into the St. Louis area here. And depending on how much you've sorted it, it will even practically get down into some of the neighborhoods. So you can see, this was just from a couple days ago, that you can see the list of scams in our area and how much money people have lost. If you've been a victim of a scam, or if you just came across it and you didn't lose money, you can go out and fill out a scam tracker report. It will collect personal information from you, like your contact information, your phone number, your email address, your name. It is not available to the general public. BBB can see it. It also gets fed into a national database that the Federal Trade Commission and other government agencies contribute to, so that government agencies may also contact you. But there's a little box on there about news media, if you're willing to be contacted by news media. And I find that particularly helpful when consumers check yes, I would, because that's what the news media is one of the best ways for us to get information out there to the public, is when there's a person willing to share their story about how they have come in contact with this particular scam. And so this is what the public would see in terms of the information. So it's just the scam type, business name used, the date, your post, your zip code, how much money you lost, and then you write in a description of the scam. So with that, we'll open up for any of the remaining time to questions that you have for about the next 9 minutes or so.
I will say that my staff and I did experience this week. Someone sent an email that looked like it came from me that said, "Hey, could you please go run out and get some eBay cards? And then I need you to send them and do this, that, and the other with them." And one of my staff members thought that it was really me, and replied back, but nothing happened. But another one said, "I could tell by the way the signature block was that it wasn't you, because you don't sign things that way."
Yeah.
So that was a little scary.
Yeah, yeah. It's they're good, and often the people who fall for it are new to the organization too, so they don't have that history of seeing how you respond, or just those little cues that are usually in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be a very dangerous time, and you just don't think about it until you actually see it.
No.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a specific question that you want to ask Rebecca? I know there's got to be some out there. I do know that the whole unemployment was not handled very well. And I don't want to be the only one talking here, y'all. But a family member received their unemployment credit card, but didn't know that that's what it was, because it didn't say that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So that was quite a pain.
Yeah, we got those kind of after the fact too. It was just sort of just changed over, and a lot of people threw them away.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's the kind of thing that if something is out there, there's going to be scammers trying to figure out how can they capitalize on it. Yeah. So the less clear something is, the more chaos there is, the less understanding, the more opportunity for that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see those fake cards coming out there too, and scammers figuring out how to leverage that. But we haven't necessarily seen that yet.
Good. Anyone else have a question or a comment? Ed, what's your question? You want to unmute yourself?
I'm unmuted. Well, this is off the subject of what the topic was today, but I was an arbitrator for several years, and I was just wondering, are you still doing the arbitration program?
You work for BBB?
Well, I was a volunteer with the BBB.
Okay.
Arbitrator.
Yeah. It's changed a little bit. Right now, we're not using volunteers. That could change. But yeah, it's a little bit more internal now. So, but thank you for your service.
Mika, I think you have a question or a comment.
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation. That was remarkable, and I think right on time. We all probably need to hear that. I worked in an office setting, and I know there's a lot of phishing online, but how often do you encounter the get through the receptionist, get to find out who the decision maker is, that type of phishing? Because I know when I was new, I order the supplies. So then they knew my name when I answered the phone. So now they got through the receptionist to my name, and then they're asking me more direct things and sending packages to the business that with, the fake invoice type of thing. Are you still seeing a lot of that, or has it slowed down?
Yeah, we see it from time to time. And the thing to know is that, from what we hear is only the tip of the iceberg. So if we hear one or two, it's typically, if we hear three reports, that's a trend for us.
Okay.
So, because we know it's just the tip of the iceberg. Most of these things don't go reported. So we see it from time to time. Interestingly, we will see it pop up more in more rural areas or smaller communities. And then it's just like all of a sudden, well, here it is. It's over here happening. But the interesting thing with that is that scammers prey off of tactics that are used by legitimate salespeople in that instance. So a lot of times salespeople are just trying to get to the decision maker. And they weave their way through. And then, so it may be actually a legitimate person, but
one of those scams that is, I think, kind of what you're describing is where they will, they'll send you a package with something in it, and then they send you an invoice for something different or for more of the thing. And in many cases, you didn't even order it. But once they have your name that you would be the person, they put that on there that it was approved. And then if there's a disconnect, there's not a verification, then it ends up getting paid. We have also found one of the things we've seen a lot that just never seems to go away is where they will tell you that you've won an award. Your business or you as an individual have won an award, and they will ship you. They'll charge you for it, and it's a fake award. Right. But they seem to work business lists for that, and so that'll go kind of in cycles too.
That happens a couple of times a year, and I do get those calls from our members. Kiara, did you have a question?
Hi, everybody. Yes, I do. And I do apologize if this question was already asked. I had to step away. But you mentioned earlier in the presentation about unsubscribing from those emails. I think you mentioned not to unsubscribe from them. So I just wanted to get some more information on that.
Sure. Yeah, so let me approach it a little differently. So yeah, I am horrible about emails in terms of having too many of them for my personal emails. And so one way to get rid of some of those emails that I don't want to participate in anymore is just to unsubscribe from them. And there are software programs that will do that for you. And so that's totally legitimate way to control your email. The reason I'm horrible with it is I unsubscribed from one of those, and now they're all collecting. So, you need to unsubscribe in order to get out of some of those emails. What I'm talking about here is a suspicious one. So one that ends up in your spam mail, or just doesn't seem right for some reason. It's some organization you haven't done business with before, anything like that. You don't want to click on those unsubscribe buttons there, because that will tell them that it's a legitimate email address. So watch out for that. And in any of those suspicious ones, don't click on anything that looks like a link. If it's a place that you do business all the time with, and it's good, that's fine. Just know who again, it goes back to know who you're dealing with, and clicking on those links is fine. Hope that answered that for you.
Yes, ma'am. So I guess the follow-up question to that is, in those cases, once we just do not reply to them or click on anything at all, they will eventually stop.
In many cases, yes. If you don't engage with them, it will most likely stop. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's really our big recommendation for phone calls as well. If you don't recognize the number, don't answer your phone. And the way you can recognize your number, and if it's in your cell phone, is to put in contacts for the people that you know or that you do business with a lot, and then their name will pop up. And if you don't, for whatever reason, if it's important, they're going to leave you a voicemail message, and you can call back. Particularly with a lot of our seniors, we find that very, very difficult for them to do for two reasons. One is they don't want to be rude, and two, they don't want to miss out. And so they just will argue with us on that. But it is, once the scammer gets you on the phone, it's just like sort of a hypnotist, they're going to work their magic on you, and you don't want to be susceptible to that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I'm going to leave you with this information. It looks like we're at our time. It's our contact information for BBB, phone number. We're all working remotely right now, but we all can be reached one way or the other through this number. And our website, bbb.org. my email address, you can email me directly and Scam Tracker. And then Missouri Attorney General's office or the Illinois Attorney General's office. And those are important to know because we are not a government agency. We can't take legal action. We do work with those agencies in terms of providing them complaints. So it's very helpful if you want a one-stop shop, you can come to us. But if you want to work directly with them, we would certainly encourage you to do that or do both, because we will communicate the information out to the public. The Missouri Attorney General's office will be collecting things to take action. And we sometimes poke at them and say, you know, we're hearing a lot about this. Why don't you take a look into this? So work with both of us.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for this time with you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time, Rebecca, and I hope everybody has a beautiful rest of the day.
Bye, everyone.